Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I'm going to be talking about an anime which I just recently saw about a month or so ago, and it really caught me by surprise. That one being Odd Taxi. Usually two words, but sometimes fancy ass is one. I forget the term for that. The way they stylized is one. The reason this one works so well is it tries a few things that are off the beaten path, but it doesn't try to do anything that you can't really understand, because it's trying to do a story that's probably been told 1,000 different ways, but it makes the characters interesting. It makes everything mean something. And it also tries to do something a little hard to pull off, where several different storylines have to coalesce near the ending, and it ends up feeling contrived a little, but because you're there for it, and because they don't overstay their welcome, it makes sense. Like, this is something that if they wanted to cut it down to just the bare minimum, it could have been a 6-episode show. If they just wanted to be about the main 2 or 3 or 4 people, but they wanted to weave this narrative that things have consequences, and the world that you're inhabiting is always going to come around and bite you in the ass if you're doing something stupid. And it's also a matter of, what do people in screwy situations have to do to get themselves out of it? And it's also buoyed by the fact that its animation style is trying something off just enough that it's not trying to be another anime-looking show. It's trying to be something different in 2 different ways. What I mean by this is, it looks more like a Americanized cartoon. You know, it's not super fancy looking. Again, with the word stylized, you see that sometimes, like Holic is stylized in a certain way, or Gankutsuo is stylized in a certain way. They have their own like unique look to them, where it's like you're not watching an anime show and you can instantly pick up, oh, it looks kind of like everything else. This is trying to be slightly Americanized in a way that isn't the best way I would describe it, but it's not trying to be the best looking, glossiest kind of thing, and it works to its advantage because it's a little rougher around the edges. It's more about the characters than the show looking nice. It's more about trying to give you a story than trying to be, oh, I'm the prettiest looking thing ever. So that helped. Another thing that helped, and this is something they actually go into describing way later, and thankfully they allude to it through some character motivations and some dialogue here and there, is that everybody's an anthropomorphic animal. And there's a reason that everybody's an animal. I don't remember every animal offhand, so when I run through some of the characters, I'm not going to know all of them, but suffice it to say, they try to pick animals that fit the description of the characters that they would be if they were human characters. And that alone, along with the rougher animation style, gives this its own feel. The characters are the main draw. The style is secondary. And that's important, because that's what makes a show sometimes. Either it looks the super fucking nice and you can't turn your eyes away from it, or the characters are gripping enough and that the story they tell is just good enough. Like I said, in this case, it's just good enough because these characters, make it work. And that there's like no fat on the bones, there's no excess crap getting in the way. This is perfectly what it needs to be for the amount of stuff they're trying to tell, given that the narrative is so kind of scattershot. but everything works out in the end is great. But the idea here is that a taxi driver, a walrus by the name of Hiroshi Odokawa, voiced by Mike McFarlane, just a 40-year-old taxi driver dude, nothing fancy to him, very gruff, very blunt, very, very up on things when he needs to be, and also very street smart where he needs to be, and, but also a guy that kind of just wants to be left alone in most cases. A lot of the early episodes are just him in his taxi picking up random strangers. But unfortunately for him, the problem ends up being who he ends up picking up sometimes. And his circle of friends and his other exploits end up coalescing in ways that he wasn't expecting. And he is friends with Eiji Kakihana, and voiced by Lucian Dodge. His friend is just this kind of like down and out loser guy trying to pick up a date through a dating app and whatever. He's just some fucking janitor dude, has like no scruples. He's just whiny, and Odokawa is just like, dude, you just kind of suck. But drinking buddies, whatever, and they're fine. But Odokawa is also talking with this nurse and his personal doctor. His doctor is Ayumu Goriki, voiced by Damon Mills, and Miho Shirakawa, voiced by Lauren Landa. These two kind of get more screen time as the friends, and because Goriki's been Odokawa's doctor for God knows how long, for an uncertain kind of condition. We assume it's like some mental thing, and Odokawa has trouble sleeping. Like, he will just work, but not in a workaholic sense, more like he just doesn't sleep. And there's a reason for that, and it's something where the show hides why, and they don't really express it. They just give you hints here and there, but it's never one of these like hidden things. It's more of like, well, I'm not going to bring it up if you're not. It's kind of this understood agreement where they don't really need to. It's more of the doctor confidentiality saying, all right, well, if this is what you want, but at the same time, I'll help you when it needs to. And Shirakawa slowly gets closer to him. And it's one of those, like, I was asked to do so, but then I really kind of fell for you kind of things. And I do appreciate that Odokawa at first doesn't really fall for that bullshit. And he's kind of just like, I don't want you around me. I don't want you near me. I don't need to be, and then, again, they slowly kind of get over it. And they do kind of get subtle feelings. I think Shirakawa is just awkward enough of a person to like pique Odokawa's interest. Like her whole, I'm a nurse but I do capoeira, and like they do this like weird extended sequence where like she's doing this like fake self-defense thing, like and it comes up here and there. They don't overdo it. Like, this is a trait you could overuse in a dumber show and it would be like ridiculous. But they do enough of it to like, oh, I understand it. This is why you do it. This makes sense. And it ends up making sense for the two of them, despite the, I was meant to, keep tabs on you, but I secretly like you. That storyline, The reason she's there, and the main antagonist of the show is Dobu, voiced by Patrick Sates. His whole thing is he's a gangster. He gets money for a higher level gangster, and he shows up in Odokawa's car. You get these police officers and other people always kind of getting involved, and Odokawa's car has this like SD card or system in their like a camera system. So you get in the car, and he has the film to back up that, if you talk about something or whatever, or if he sees something, a lot of people are kind of assuming that he knows something about some murder that was going on, or that he knows somebody who'd passed away in a weird way, and they don't know if he did it or not. So Dobu tries to do it. Other people try to find him, one being Fuyuki Yamamoto, voiced by Xander Mobus, who was Joker in Persona 5. So Yamamoto is this guy who's trying to build this idol group called Mystery Kiss, and that's his whole thing. But he's involved in the mob. The reason that Mystery Kiss is even successful at all is because he has ties to the mob, and a separate character known as Yano, voiced by Darius Johnson. The weirdest thing about Yano is that he doesn't show up until 5 or 6 episodes in, and he raps. All of his lines are rhyming, rapping, and unlike Dobu, who's kind of not stupid, but the gruff gangster type, just I'm gonna kill you and I don't care. This guy is very flowery. He just loves to hear the sound of his own fucking voice. And again, everything he says is a rap, and it's weird, and it's just I can't. You get used to it, but for the first little while, you're what the fuck is this guy on? And he's not even I'm a fucking weirdo. It's I do it, but I'm not I'm gonna shoot you now. He just has other people doing it, or he will shoot people here and there, but it's not one of those things where he just flies off the handle. It's just his way of talking, and it's different, So you got those two competing gangsters as kind of these lower level dudes, and you'll see the main guy here and there, but it adds to the story here and there. But the biggest thing is you have all of these people going after Odokawa because of his SD card. The main crux of the show is apparently he saw or is involved with the death of a person who was in Mystery Kiss, apparently, or could have been, but is more important than you think. There's also this hidden storyline of this person in a closet in Odokawa's apartment, so you wonder, is he harboring somebody? Is there something else there? And then you have all these other weird storylines. I think the thing is that they're trying to flesh out 5 or 6 different storylines. You get to learn about different Mystery Kiss members, and then a comedy troupe that Odokawa listens to in his car. A straight man, funny man group, but they have their own problems. And you hear the radio guys; they'll be talking about, well, you're not the funniest guy. You should have just quit that. We should quit this fucking job or whatever. And then you get to learn about them. You get to go talk to a different guy who is obsessed with social media, so he gets involved here and there. He gets involved with Dobu because he thinks it'll make him popular. Odokawa's friend gets involved with Mystery Kiss, who's, may or may not be scamming him out of money because reasons. Weird competing interests here and there. They even spent an episode talking about some random kid, and his obsession with this game and getting this game. And then what ends up happening ties back into the main story, and it's one of those weird things. Is why did you spend? Okay. Does it make sense at the end? Yes. Did they have to spend an entire episode doing that? I don't know. I think it was one of those I don't know how you would describe it. 50 million storylines all trying to tie together in one, and I guess everything does revolve around Odokawa by proxy. It's not like he's this dynamic, charismatic, and he's enigmatic, but he's smart enough to know when he's in trouble and how to get himself out of it. I do appreciate that he's able to understand that he's not a Superman. He's a fat guy driving a fucking taxi. But he's smart enough to kind of know how to use it to his advantage, how to use whatever situation he's in. And he's actually able to kind of barter with people and talk with them and understand, I'm just a guy. Why am I in this situation? What is my problem? How do I get out of it? And he comes up with solutions that kind of works against the people he's against. So he's able to do enough with his head, where his mindset is at. And that was refreshing, that he's smart enough or sly enough to get him out of situations that, he's not some action hero. He's just a fucking taxi driver. And that's kind of nice, actually. Because this is one of those shows where you kind of know what you're in for. These like dirtier, grimier crime drama, mob drama kinds of things. It knows what it's trying to be. And if you can stick with the 5 or 6 different separate storylines competing for screen time, because Odokawa is not always in it, but people around him or in the periphery are members of the cast. So you get these different things, like 15 to 20 different characters, all kind of like weaving in and out of the narrative and working through it. If that's the sort of show you like, I think this is going to be one of the better ones. The opening theme sets the tone really well, and it was one I actually didn't really like at first for a couple episodes, and then by the end of the show, and I started listening to it because I was doing the what was it? It's a listing of like my favorite anime openings and endings here and there. I've actually slowly come around to it and really liking it. It's a nice, slow kind of rapping song, kind of like one of the endings to Spy Family. And it does set the tone really well, and it ended up becoming very enjoyable. So, quick turnaround for that. But it does really well. The one thing I will say is they don't have the full ending. They do its own ending at the end of the show. They have a different ending, or an addition, an addendum. Crunchyroll has all of the episodes. There's just 12 or 13 episodes, give or take. But then they have a recap movie. I think they call it Out of the Woods or Back of the Woods or something like that. And if you watch the recap movie, you get like a 10-minute sequence that they add to the end of it, and they find more stuff to tell. So it feels awkward trying to want to watch a recap video with more footage spliced in just to get the good bits. What I did, and what most people on Reddit would suggest, is watch the show as is, get the full scope of it, and then watch the last 10 minutes. It's only in subbed format. I had to watch in dub, so it was a bit of a distraction, but it was only 10 minutes. So it didn't bother me that much. But I did find it strange that you'd add a 10-minute, we got some more footage, and okay. Not what I was expecting, sort of ending there. But everything ties itself up nicely. They do everything it needs to do, and it gets the fuck out. Some shows don't tell everything they're going to tell because they want to have the manga to tell you, or they have another season to show you. No, this is, a 12-episode show, a 13-episode show. You're in, you're out, and I loved it. I absolutely adored it because I heard there was a lot of publicity around this one as far as like, you get a gauge from people as like, this is a really good show, or this is like one of the best ones of that season, and I tend not to let that color my expectations. Usually I don't like reading spoilers or reading hearing about things or understanding things. The most I'll get is, hey, a lot of people liked this, or some people said, oh, this is really fucking good. But I'm not sitting here going, oh, I know everything about this, I can't wait to be disappointed. The more you hype something up, the more you're disappointed that it doesn't read up. This was something that I'd heard about and is cool, but I'd left it on my queue forever. Now I finally got to it, and okay, this is really fucking good. I'm kind of annoyed that I waited this long, because you never know. But anyway, would I recommend Odd Taxi? Absolutely. Tried and true crime drama stuff told in a slightly different way with a main character and a cast that are slightly offbeat. in a style that makes itself special. It's fun and engaging the whole way through, and even if some of the stuff doesn't make sense, it's one of those things that does after a while and ends up working to its advantage if you stick with it. Let's see here. And the journey. Okay, so there we go. But I got my listing of what we're going to be doing after this. So, come on, phone, stop it. My phone was rotating on me. Let's see. So next week is Metal Gear Solid 3. I'm in the midst of Metal Gear Solid on my gameplay channel, so that should be fairly simple and easy to deal with. As I mentioned before, the favorite anime openings and endings. I'll kind of count down maybe the top 5 or top 10, even though I've listed like 50 or 60 each. I'm probably going to list that in a different part somewhere, maybe in a comment. Xenosaga 2, Sankarea, Final Fantasy Glitches and Translation Errors, Gunslinger Girl, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. I'm working my way through the Apollo Justice trilogy, and I gotta say, Apollo Justice is better than I remember, even if it's still kind of eh. And then Casshern Sins, mid-November. That one, that one you gotta be in the right mood for, but I still love it. But that'll do for today and this week's episode. And I'll see you guys next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.